Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rose. I usually talk a lot about AVPD, which is avoidant personality disorder, or as someone called it in the comments, alien versus predator disorder, which I think is awesome and hilarious. So that's how I'm just going to think about it from now on in my head. Alien versus predator disorder. Also, welcome to my little studio. I've been trying to set this up, and it's just I got some extra lights, and I'm trying to learn how to do some photography and videography, so bear with me as I learn and mess it up a bunch. I'm sure that this lighting is like way too bright for what is necessary, but I could be wrong. I don't know. We're just gonna try it out and see how it works. Also, my wintertime in Seattle look, my flannel and beanie. And everyone's like, oh my god, you look like you're 12, but you can't put your hair in a ponytail if you're wearing a hat. So I have pigtails because it keeps it on my face, keeps me warm. And I think it looks just fine, so whatever. Anyway, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about therapy, because people have asked me in the comments a bunch of times about getting a therapist. And so I wanted to just kind of let you know my thoughts on it, and how it's helped me, affected me, and whatnot. So just to give you a real, breakdown of how I did it, or how it all started with therapy with me. So last year, I want to say it was around Christmas time, which makes sense because Christmas time is like overwhelming. But I decided, I was really, really frustrated, and I think I had gotten into an argument with my boyfriend, and he had said something like, you need therapy, you need to talk to someone. And I was like, you know what, I probably do, because I had, I'd been having all these problems with social anxiety and all the problems that come along with that, depression and avoidance and all that kind of thing. And I had watched a bunch of YouTube videos about what to do about social anxiety, and then I watched a bunch of videos about what you can do to help with social anxiety. And on one of the videos, the guy said, if you try all these things and it still doesn't work, you need to get therapy. And so I was arguing with my boyfriend. He said something like, you need to see a therapist. And I was like, looks like I probably do. I probably should talk to a therapist. Like, what could have hurt? But I think in my head, I had thought always that like I just couldn't afford it. Therapists are just something that like rich people have, and I'm not going to be able to afford that. So I hadn't really looked too much into it, but then I thought, well, maybe there's a YouTube video that tells you how to get a therapist or acts in some way as some sort of therapy. And so I looked that up on YouTube, and I found this one girl, and she said, here's 5 ways to get a therapist. And one of the ways that she mentioned was through the state. A lot of states right now, I don't know what time you're watching this video, but here in 2022, a lot of people are focusing on mental health. At least my state is. Washington State focuses a bit on mental health. So I looked into it and found out that you can actually, through your insurance, through your state insurance, which is free, get a therapist. And so it's only therapists that take your type of coverage. So I got on my healthcare website, and I started looking through the mental health things that they had. And one of them was therapy, and they had teletherapy, which one of the other problems I had was I have a car, but my boyfriend uses it every day, and so it's very difficult for me to really get to a place without my children, without having to pay for it, like a babysitter and taking the bus to the babysitters and then going to, it's just way too much. So I found out that they did teletherapy, and I made a list of all of the therapists in my area that were covered by my insurance, and I just started calling each one. And as a person who's terrified of talking to people, I gotta say, just the act of doing that itself was one of the most frustrating things I've ever done in my life. I remember I actually took a picture of it and put it on my Facebook story, and I think I said something like, ironically enough, searching for a therapist is the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. One of the most stressful things I did in my life. But I put that in my Facebook story, and a bunch of people hit me up, and they were like, hey girl, like I had this guy. I don't have a lot of like close-up friends, like I have a couple, but I don't have a lot. And I have a lot of Facebook, like 450, it's not that much, but like I have like 450 Facebook friends, and a bunch of them had hit me up and they were like, this is how I got therapy, and this is what it did for me, and I talked to this lady and she gave me a bunch of advice. So I just got all this advice from people online, and I ended up going with the state insurance because it was the easiest, and it was telehealth and it was free and everything. But it was really interesting. It was really heartening to be able to see the kind of how much people reached out to me. That was in itself helpful, beneficial to my mentality. And then I finally got through to this one place, and everything lined up. They worked out. They were going to be my new therapist. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the process of how it happened, because I think it's a little overwhelming and intimidating, especially if you're, very avoidant and you don't want to talk to anybody. So this is how it went, just so you know. So you're educated on the process, at least in my area. Maybe this isn't exactly how they do it in your area, but this is how they did it in my area. So I called the place, and they were like, all right, we're going to set you up with an intake person. So they set you up with an intake person. It's like, I want to say I had to wait a month to talk to her. So it was a online, so remote appointment. And I just got on the video conference, and she asked me a bunch of questions, and they're invasive questions. Like, they're going to ask you, have you ever been like sexually assaulted, or have you ever been the victim of any type of abuse? Like, and you don't, with this person, with the intake person, you don't have to elaborate if you don't want to, but you can give certain details if you want to. Like if they say, have you ever been sexually abused, you can say yes, and that's part of your history. And the reason they're doing that, as far as I can tell, is to get you with the right therapist. Like maybe it's someone who, maybe you've been abused physically by your parents or whatever. They're going to get you maybe with a therapist that has some domestic violence history, or that's like their thing. I don't know, but that's what I assumed. At the time, I didn't know my own diagnosis, and I haven't been like formally diagnosed with avoidant personality disorder. Basically, when I got my second therapist, I just told her, like, I'm pretty sure this is what I got, and she never really disagreed with me. So there's never been like written in paper, this is what I have. So for the people that have been asking in the comments, no, there's not been a formal diagnosis. Basically, I just went through and I found the traits of avoidant personality disorder, and they said, so there's another video on YouTube. This lady talks about, she talks about all the different personality disorders, and she'll tell you, like, if you have more than like 5 of these traits, then you are a person that most likely has this disorder. And I had like 10 of 12 or something like that. So take that how you want. I mean, it's not been a formal diagnosis, but yes, I do line up with it almost perfectly. So anyway, I decided I had to do the intake, and so it was, they ask you a lot of personal questions, and then it's a lot of questions. I want to say it took like an hour. They ask you a bunch of questions about your whole experience, and then they match you up with the therapist, and then you schedule your meeting with that therapist. And mine, at least, was a remote therapy session. So I get on at a certain time, and it was video, so I could actually see her and she can see me. And I think that you can actually just call and talk to them as well, but mine was video, and I wanted it to be video because I wanted to, it's kind of hard to explain. I don't know if this actually has anything to do with it, but I find it comfortable to look at myself when I'm speaking. And I don't know if that's because of like a mirroring effect. Like if you're talking to a person and they mirror you in a way, you connect with them on kind of like a better level. It's kind of like I've read a bunch of different books on talking to people, and it's one of the things they tell you to do is to actually mirror the person that you're talking to in some way. Like you maybe turn your feet towards them, or you are speaking in their direction, you're turning your body towards them. And so I think that when I'm actually speaking and I can see myself, it's helpful to me to hold a conversation. And I think the reason that is because I can see like the mirror image of me, and it's almost like I'm connecting with another individual even though I am aware that it's me. So when I'm doing the video conference with the therapist and I can see myself on the screen and I can see how she's reacting, it's almost like a clarification that I'm not being a total weirdo because I can actually see what I'm doing, and also it's almost like I'm connecting with someone who's paying attention to me even though it's just me as a person. So that's why I wanted to do the video conference, or at least that's why it turned out to be good. I don't know if I had that insight before the conference. But anyway, so the therapist that I got was this really nice lady. She was like probably my age or a bit younger, and she was an intern. She was an intern, so she had actually completely finished her school. So, but she was, it was weird. She, every single time I met with her, she was wearing almost like the exact same, like light brown colored turtleneck sweater. And it was always like big and baggy, and like it, like every single time, no matter if it was the hottest day of the entire year, she was still wearing this sweater. And she was real. She was like unassuming. She would just listen. She kind of just let me talk. And like if I needed her, she, you know, if I started crying at any point, if I mean, there were several times where like it was a therapy session, so I expected that I needed to be talking, I suppose, the entire time. And so when I would talk to her, like sometimes I would get so worked up and I would start actually like crying or shaking so bad that I couldn't get the words out, you know. And it was crazy because she was like, you know what, you don't have to talk the whole time. It's just, this is just your hour, you know, you can kind of just say what you need to say. And you know what, not all therapists are the same. So anyway, that all happened. So I was going with her for like maybe like 6 months, and then she tells me that her internship had ended, so I wasn't going to be allowed to, I wasn't going to be allowed to continue to use her as my therapist. She wanted me, like, there's like a problem with the insurance and her schooling and whatever. It wasn't going to work anymore. So she wasn't going to be my therapist anymore. And so she told me like someone else is going to call me within like in the next couple of weeks and let's set you up with a new therapist. They never called me. Or also, you know what? I keep saying they never called me, but honestly, I am kind of avoidant at answering my phone if I don't recognize the number. And also I hate checking my voicemail. So it's very possible that they called me and I just never got the call. Anyway, eventually I decided, you know, like I still need therapy. I still needed to have someone to talk to. So I ended up searching for a new therapist, did the whole process over again. And I ended up with a new therapist the second time. And it was the same process. I had to go through intake again. So I had to talk to another person. Same thing happened, only I was a bit stronger this time. You know, I think I may have started crying one time, but I was able to kind of control it, so it was fine. But I went and I got the new therapist, and the new lady, she's cool. It took me a minute to really get used to her, because she's a full-fledged therapist, and she has like her master's degree and everything like that. And because the first lady kind of just let me talk, but I made it very clear when I was looking for this new therapist. I was like, these are my problems. So I have not been formally diagnosed, but I know I'm an avoidant personality disorder scale type of person. I have a lot of social anxiety. I also have already been to therapy, and I could tell that the previous lady was an intern. Like, she definitely knew a lot of things, but she was still learning. And I've done a lot of research. I've read a lot of books. I've watched a lot of videos. I've researched this topic. And so I want someone that's next level. I want someone that's gonna know which direction to point me in. And so I started with this new lady, and I think she was more tailored to me, but the way that she did her therapy was different. Like, I would tell her a bunch of stuff, and then she would be like, and I think she's taking notes the whole time, I can't quite tell. And you know what, I'm like 90% sure that that's what she's doing. She's kind of like taking notes on her computer, because she'll like go back and like refer to her notes sometimes. She'd be like, remember when you were talking about this the other day? But she always often starts her sentences with, I'm just validating those feelings that you're having right there. And I just want to point out that, you know, you said this before, and you don't seem to be giving yourself credit in this situation. And she's very, she's helpful in redirecting my thought process, you know, when I start kind of getting overwhelmed, because I'll start talking about things that have happened to me, and I'll start like talking faster, and I'll start talking myself into crying, and I get shaky and overwhelmed. And so one of the really cool things about both therapists is they both kind of forced me to learn how to slow down a bit. The second one has recommended a couple of different books. I read one of them, and I'm about halfway through the second one. So, but they're both books that you should really take some time to read. You know, you don't want to rush through restructuring your mental processes, because if you do, you're just not going to build the best foundation. You have to take some time and do it. And so through working with both therapists and their recommendations and the advice that they've given me, I've kind of learned how to slow down a bit, how to examine what's going on around me instead of just reacting first, and also how to be cognizant of the fact that, like, I'm not the only one that's awkward. Most people aren't super comfortable talking to other folks, you know, and especially not right now. I think a lot of us have been a bit socially stunted because of many things, you know, COVID, one of them, another of them being technology. You know, I heard that there's this separation between people who are of, so my generation, I'm a millennial apparently, because it's from like 1980 to 1990 or something like that. But anyway, I'm technically a millennial, right? And then you have this Gen Z. I think there's more than one generation between then and now. But one of the separations, sociologically speaking, is the separation between, when I was born, I didn't have a computer in my house. Like, some people did, but it wasn't like everybody had a computer in their house, right? And you definitely didn't have a computer in your hand all the time. And now, but we did. I remember being the last person in my class, the second to the last person in my class to get a home computer. I remember my teacher asked everybody, because we had to do this, asking everyone in the class, because we had to like type up this project, and she was like, okay, raise your hand if you have a home computer. And everybody raised their hand except for me and like one or two other kids. And so we had to type ours at school, so we had to like write it up at home and then come into the school and actually type up our stuff on the school computer. But that was when I was 11. So at 11, we still didn't have a home computer. Now, I think when I was 12 is when we got one. It might have been because of that. That might have been the actual catalyst. Anyway, so the difference between the generations is that, like, we didn't start out with the technology in our hands, and then now you have all these kids that are walking around with, they've had a phone, you know, they've been playing games on their mom's phone since they were, you know, a year old or less. And, you know, you have a TV in every room of your house, and there's constantly like a screen that you can look at anywhere that you go. And it's really crazy, because I notice that everywhere I go. You know, if you go to have dinner in a restaurant, there's a TV in the corner. There's a separation between the generations there, and I think a lot of the problem with that is going to end up being like the social interaction part of it. And maybe we're just going to adapt and become more you know, I don't know, binary in our social interactions. Like, maybe we have one way that we interact with people online, and maybe we have a different way that we've learned how to act with people in person. I don't think that as a species we're gonna like be ended by the fact that we don't have good social interactions, but we are social creatures, so I guess we just have to adapt. And I think that it might be beneficial to be an avoidant personality disorder person at this time, because I think that the social stunting of this kind of transitional generation is going to be, it's not going to have all the kinks worked out yet, you know? And so I think that you almost get kind of a small pass because of that. And at least that's what I've been telling myself, like, don't worry about it, because, you know, everyone's having a problem with social interactions right now because of all these other factors. And so I don't know if that's necessarily true, but it's something that I tell myself in order to get past some of my social anxiety. So I don't know, maybe that helps you out too. There's a roundabout way of saying everybody's a little awkward, okay? But yeah, so I got the therapist, and it's really been helping me. And I want to say that I feel like it's almost similar to confession. I've never done confession. I'm not a Catholic or anything like that. And I feel like if I went into confession, I'd be there like all day. The priest would be like, damn bitch, would you shut up? Like, how much have you done? Yeah, it feels a bit like confession, because you just, and you don't have to confess your sins, but you're just telling them about all the different problems that have happened to you in your life and all the things that you might think affect you. And you have to think about it like this person that you're talking to legally cannot tell anybody else anything that you're saying. I even brought this up to my therapist, and she was like, you're right. You know, you can tell, because I told her I have this YouTube channel, and I was like telling her I was going to do a video on therapy. This is a very meta part of this video. But you know, I was telling her I wanted to tell people that your therapist can't tell anybody anything that happens in your session. And if they do, you can sue them. So at least I'm pretty sure you can sue them, because it's a violation of HIPAA. It's a violation of your doctor-patient rights, doctor-patient confidentiality. So you know, there's not much more backup you're gonna get. You know, like if you go talk to a friend and then that friend like betrays you in the future and then tells everybody all your secrets, that's a risk. You know, if you have a friend and you trust that person, they can sell you out. Well, if this doctor does, you can go get a bunch of money and go hide on an island somewhere and you'll be fine. But chances are you won't know your therapist personally. You probably won't live in the same area. You probably never see your therapist in real life. If you're doing it remotely, and they can't tell anybody. And if they do tell anybody, the chances that anybody that they tell anything to knows you is probably pretty low. So it's probably the safest way I've found to get a bunch of stuff off my chest. And honestly, just being able to get all those thoughts and stories and thought processes off of your chest, like being able to just say it, something like, to just be like, you know, like I try to go to you know, a party, and when I get there I start shaking, and then I start talking too much, or I start sharing too much, or I clam up and hide in a corner, or you know, whatever your thing is, whatever it is that you do because you're avoiding, or maybe you just don't even go to the party because you know if you go there you're like person that, and then all they're gonna do is be like, okay, well, let's walk through that thought process and let's see like why are you thinking that, and why are you so scared, like what's the worst that could happen. And you can ask that therapist, like, give me a book recommendation, and then we'll tell you a book recommendation, and you go listen to it on an audio format, and then you can like take notes, and you can journal, and you can do a bunch of different things to just change your mentality. And just having a person, like if you're constantly in this loop where you're like, that thing that happened when I was like 22 years old and I was at a bar with my friends and I did this stupid thing, and I'm sure that every day they think about how stupid I am because I did that one thing, and that's like this thought process is going through your head for like a decade, and you just can't, it's like on a hamster loop, and you just can't get it out of your head. And then you have a therapist and you tell the therapist that thing, and then they're going to be like, hold on, you're telling me you've been thinking about this for 10 years. What if those people don't, you know, and then they're going to just like point you in a different direction, down a different thought process, down a different thought pathway. And just that repositioning, just that refocus will help you jump off that hamster wheel. It's just like, it's so beneficial just to be able to like get it out of your head and just like into someone else's face, just to be able to do that and have like this other person know that it happened to you and have a different perspective, and know that that person has a different perspective. Something about that is just, for a lack of a better word, very therapeutic. And so I highly recommend it, and I do everything you can to just find a good therapist that works for you. And I mean, if you can find a friend that you can talk to, that you're not too embarrassed to talk to, and that you're not worried will like sell you down the road, you know, in the future, then do that too. But it is hard, I'm not gonna lie. Like the act itself of finding a therapist was infuriating, like to a point where I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna give up. Like I just don't care. But just making that list, this is my list, I call all these people, I left a message, they didn't answer, you know, and I've looked back over that list, I called like 20 people and left a bunch of messages, only like 2 of them called me back. So you really got to make some phone calls, you really have to put some effort into it, and it's hard, but if you can do it, it's really, really helpful in the future. So thanks for watching, and get a therapist or get someone to talk to, because you need to get it out of your head. Like if it's just stuck here, it's keeping you up at night, and it's just in a loop in your head all the time. It's maddening. It's like enough to drive you crazy. So instead of being worried about how critical people have been about you, just find someone that you can tell how irritated you are that you think all these people are this critical of you. Please do that. Please get someone to talk to. Anyway, tell me what you think. Like, comment, subscribe. And also, I'm going to put the link down below to a Facebook group that I opened up. There's only 5 people on it right now, but I just started it. I started it like a couple months ago, but I didn't really tell anybody about it until recently. So I'm going to put the link down there, and then I'm going to try to be more active on that. I'm trying to do like a little bit of time every night, at least every weekday, where I have at least 30 minutes working on my social media. So hopefully I'll be able to answer to some more of your comments and maybe be a little bit more active on that group. So I'll link it down below. You can add yourself if you want. Also, I got a Audible code. So if you go to audible.com/rose, you can get, it's basically like the same deal when you sign up with Audible, but you know, I get some sort of commission and you help me out, help me put my boys through college. Audible.com/rose, or the Facebook group. I think it's just called AVPD. I should know the name. But I'm gonna, yeah, I'll put the link in the comments. Add yourself, tell your story. Hopefully it'll just be like a private place everybody can talk, and we can get some engagement and whatnot. All right. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and we got 300 subscribers. Yay! 1/3 of the way there, just about. I have like 305, I think, as of this morning, so it's pretty exciting. Also, just so you know, my goal with this channel is to get monetized. I'm really trying to like come up with some money to help. Like I gotta put my kids through college somehow, and I just can't afford to do it right now. And like looking at how much money I'm making, that's just not gonna happen. So I gotta find another way to do it. So it's one of the reasons I started this YouTube channel. So like, comment, subscribe really helps me out. And thanks for everyone who has already subscribed and commented and liked. And thank you for sharing your stories. And I love reading them, and I'm trying to get to every comment if I can. So thanks. Bye.